We are welcome back to class on respiration. The last time we met on respiration, we discussed the definition of respiration, that the laws of thermodynamics and the characteristics of respiratory surface or surfaces. We should not forget that the definition of respiration that is generally accepted is the one that have to deal with energy generation. So respiration itself is a form of process that generates energy for all living activities. Now we have two types of respiration. We have to be very careful when we are answering questions on this. The types of respiration that we have may differ, but most time in exam, what is expected of students to write in types of definition now will tell us as we move on in the class. So we have two types of respiration. We have what we call external respiration, and the second one is internal respiration. Now the first one, which is external respiration, external respiration. External respiration is the type of respiration that is usually given to us in elementary school, which is those respiration that involves the breathing in of oxygen and the breathing out of carbon dioxide. In secondary school or in colleges, we don't accept that as definition of respiration. So breathing and breathing out is actually not respiration. It's a very small part of respiration, very small part. So external respiration does this with gaseous exchange, and that is defined as a process by which oxygen is taken in and carbon dioxide is actually taken out of the living system. But if you look at it, is it oxygen that we breathe in? No. We breathe in air and we also breathe out air. The air that we breathe in has oxygen as part of it. The air that we breathe out also have oxygen as part of it. But the only thing that is actually different in the air we breathe in and what we breathe out is the oxygen content in the air that we breathe in is higher than the oxygen content of the air that we breathe out. The air we breathe in has more oxygen than the air that we breathe out. While the carbohydrate content of the air that we breathe in is lower than the carbohydrate content of the air that we breathe out. So that will actually make us know, we should know the percentage content of oxygen in the air. The percentage content of oxygen in air. According to chemistry and the composition of air, the percentage content of oxygen in the air is around 21%. So the oxygen content in the air is around 21% of oxygen. 21% oxygen. Why? The percentage content of carbon dioxide in the air is 0.03% of CO2, carbon dioxide. So having these percentages, when we breathe in air, we expect or the percentage of the oxygen in that air to be approximately 21%. The air we breathe out should have lower percentage of oxygen Likewise for carbon dioxide, the air we breathe in must have approximately 0.03% of carbon dioxide. The one we breathe out must have above this, which is going to be around 0.05% of carbon dioxide. So we breathe in both air and we breathe out air, but the percentage content of this of the composition of the air varies. The air we breathe in has more oxygen than the air we breathe out. The air we breathe in has lower CO2, carbon dioxide, than the one we breathe out. It's as simple as that. Now, external respiration is just dealing with exchange of gases. And that will lead us to the types. What are the two parts of external respiration? The two parts of external respiration are breathing in, and breathing out. So breathing in can also be referred to as inhalation, while the breathing out is exhalation. Breathing in, breathing out, or as the case may be. Then we also have it to be called, can also be called expiration and inspiration. Inspiration is inhalation, while expiration, that's to breathe out, is exhalation. So breathing in and breathing out. When we breathe in, so many things will happen, and when we breathe out, so many things will happen. We should have a little understanding of some of the things that happens to the body when we carry out external respiration. For breathing in, if you look at yourself and you have a deep breath, breathing in, you breathe in, you look at your chest, look at your diaphragm, look at your sternum, that is the breastbone. You will notice some things about them. When you breathe in, you will notice the diaphragm will move upward. It will move upward and form a dome shape. When you breathe, it will form a dome shape. Then the chest itself, the cage of the chest, will move outward and upward. The diaphragm will move upward and will form a dome shape. So let me come like this. Breathing in, inhalation, inhalation. The diaphragm is expected to form a dome shape. It comes up like this. Dome shape. Then we have also the rib cage. We move upward and forward. The rib cage will move the sternum that forms a part of the rib cage. We move upward and forward. Then the cage itself will increase in size. We form a kind of, we increase in size, and air will rush in. Air will rush in the process of inhalation. There will be contraction of muscles of the diaphragm. Diaphragm will move upward and form a dome shape. The sternum will move upward and forward. The rib cage itself will expand for air to move in. Then for exhalation, what we have is the diaphragm will flatten out back. The chest bone that have moved upward and downward, upward and forward before, will move backwards and downward this time around, and air will be forced out of the rib cage. Intercostal space will reduce and air will be forced out. That is for exhalation. So I'll come again. For inhalation, what we have most time is the diaphragm we move upward and form a dome shape. Forward, form a dome shape. The sternum will move upward and forward. Then we have also the intercostal space, we expand for air to come in. Then we have also the chest bone, we move upward and forward also. There will be contraction of muscles of the intercostal muscles. There will be contraction of the intercostal muscles in that process of inhalation. Therefore, exhalation, what we have is the diaphragm will return back to its shape. The muscles that has initially contracted will relax. Then the chest bone that have moved upward and forward will move downward and backwards. The intercostal space will reduce size and air will be forced out of the body. That is for flattening out. Okay, flattened out, and somehow like this shape will not be dome of, not from a dome shape. So that's for external respiration. That's for external respiration. In some cases, you might be asked, which of the following air best describe air that is coming out during the process of exhalation? Your attention should be focused on the percentage of oxygen and the percentage of carbon dioxide. If you have oxygen content lower than 20 or 20, lower than 20, you should know that that is air that is what? That is coming out of the body. If you have it as 21, you should know that that is air that is actually, that is air that is coming out of the body. If it is 21, it is air that is going into the body, that is for inhalation. If it is below 21 or below 20, as guess maybe, it is air that is coming out, that is product, that is air that is coming out of the body. Just pay attention on the amount, the percentage of oxygen and carbon dioxide that is present inside the air. When people are given oxygen in the hospital, most time it is just air that is having higher percentage of oxygen, maybe 75 or 80% of oxygen. That is what we have in most cases where people are given oxygen in the hospital, just to make it concentrated. Now that's what in external respiration. Now we'll come to internal respiration. Internal respiration. Internal respiration is a kind of respiration that occurs in the cell or in the tissue, as the case may be. That's why in some cases internal respiration is also referred to as tissue or cellular respiration. Cellular respiration, tissue or cellular respiration. Because it is actually the respiration that generates the ATP that is needed by the body. This first one now we have mentioned does not generate ATP. In fact, if I will say, it is also using or utilizes or make use of ATP. But this particular one that is called internal respiration, it is the respiration that generates what we actually need, which that is the energy currency that is needed by the organism. So this internal respiration, which is also known as tissue respiration, is actually the oxidation of organic material to generate ATP. I've mentioned the meaning of ATP before. That's adenosine triphosphate. So this internal respiration or tissue respiration or cellular respiration is the oxidation of organic material to generate ATP. And the main organic material that we have in this case is glucose. glucose, that is the main organic material, glucose, C6H12O6. That's the main organic material, although other substances could also be involved, but this is the main organic material that is actually oxidized to generate what we call ATP. Now, for this internal respiration, there are two types of internal respiration. The two types are, we have what we call aerobic respiration, types of internal respiration. Internal respiration. Types of internal respiration. We have the first one to be called aerobic respiration. And the second one is called anaerobic respiration. I've said it before, and I'm repeating it again. In biology, we use alphabet A to bring in the opposite of a known word in most cases. Take for instance, if I have cellular and I put an alphabet A in front of that cellular, it becomes acellular or acellular. That word acellular means that particular system does not have cell property or does not have protoplasm. So biotic, abiotic or abiotic. The word abiotic is telling you that it is the opposite of biotic. So biotic, living things. Abiotic, non-living. So the same way, the same is applicable to aerobic and anaerobic. You see, we are bringing in an alphabet N here, because if you are having A in front of an I, it becomes aerobic. It will not look very nice. But in this best sense of biologists, it has an A and N before the next, and just to make it sound unique. So we have anaerobic to give us the opposite of aerobic respiration. And if you look at the word aerobic, you will notice something like air, aerobic. If you are dealing with respiration and you are dealing with air, the interest of anyone talking about respiration, their interest will be majorly the active part of the air, which is oxygen. So aerobic, it is respiration that involves oxygen for oxidation, while anaerobic, respiration that does not involve oxygen for oxidation. That brings me to something that I will have to just mention briefly before I move on. The major chemical processes or chemical reactions that occur in respiration is actually oxidation and decarboxylation. Oxidation and decarboxylation. Oxidation and decarboxylation. Why oxidation? Yes, those are the major two chemical processes that occurs in respiration. We have oxidation, main chemical reaction in respiration. So the main two are just one: oxidation, oxidation, which could be addition of oxygen, or could be removal of hydrogen from a substance. So it could be either of these two. The oxygen is being added to the substance, or hydrogen is being removed from the substance. Then we also have the second main reaction, which is carboxylation. Decarboxylation. That is removal of carbon. Removal of carbon. Remover of carbon, or in the real chemistry it says remove carboxylic group, which is actually the COOH group. Although this group being removed is going to be removed or expelled as CO2 and H2O. In most cases, it will go out or be expelled or be removed as CO2 and H2O. You just have to balance the equation to have everything done. If I add my 2 here for carboxylic group, and water will be actually released in the process. Now, the next part which I want us to quickly look at before we end this class is, in most exams, when they ask the types of respiration, what is expected of students is actually these 2 types: aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic and anaerobic respiration, which is respiration that involves the use of oxygen for oxidation, and respiration that does not involve the use of oxygen for respiration. I think in the next class we'll be looking at 2 main processes, processes involved in the generation of ATP in a living cell. Thank you.